Hey, something that a lot of you might not know about me is I collect old pens, and I started doing this a little while ago, and yeah, I really enjoy it. A lot of times, like I'd use pens, and everybody's always taking pens, and you got your favorite pens and everything like that, right? But they run out of ink, right? So I decided to get something that's a little bit more refillable. So I started looking and finding these old pens, and I started realizing that you can walk around in antique shops, pick up these old pens, and repair them. Now, one thing about these old pens is they're built just a little differently, and they need a little bit of care. So we'll go after that here in a little bit. So this pen that I was going to be talking about today is a Parker Challenger, and this is made in the U.S. and this is Wisconsin, I believe. Yeah, Janesville, Wisconsin, by Parker Pen Company. And due to the number, there's a little scratch right here, right there by that number, but it looks like this pen was made in 1940. So this is a pen that a friend of a friend got from her father, and she wanted it repaired. And the ink sac inside of it was completely destroyed. You could hear it sound like sand inside there. But anyways, so let's talk a little bit about this pen. This pen is a button filler. So to fill it, you push a button. That's why they call it a button filler. So pretty cool. Everything still works really well. I don't know. A lot of times when I clean these pens and everything like that, some people polish them and everything like that, but just because of writing and everything that's on this pen and the different metals and stuff like that, I decide not to do that. With a lot of my tools, you know, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It just depends. But all right. So this is the section right here, and we're just going to pull that off. So this right here is a rubber bladder, right? So some people call it an ink sac, an ink bladder. What else? Yeah, that's about it. Yeah. So it's rubber. Sometimes they can be clear. They can be the new type of. I believe this is silicone. So let's. This is for a different pen. That can be nice, clear. And these are usually different sizes. So you get different size diameters, which you can take a pair of calipers and get a measurement from them, or you can dry fit them, and then they come in different lengths. So they end up being longer than what you need. So what you do is you stick it inside your pen, and you kind of pull some measurements, and you end up cutting it after the pen's pretty clean, and then you'll put that on here with a little bit of shellac, and this is natural flake shellac sealant and adhesive, and it releases with heat, and that's how these pens were built. So these old sacs, you can take a heat gun or a blow dryer, and you can warm that up, and you can pull it right off because it releases. So that's the benefit of it. Some people on this section right here that goes back into the pen, some people will use rosin right here because it has a lower temp in which it releases. Some people use the shellac. I just use just a tiny bit of that shellac because it stays pretty firm inside of that. So then you have the nib that you write with, and then you have the feed right here. And this pen was extremely clogged through the feed. So the feed has a groove right on top of it, and the feed is this that little black deal right there. And then you have the nib right on top of that. But that black side that touches the top of this nib has this channel that runs from the ink sac down, and it's called an ink groove. And that was completely clogged, and It was just horrible, you know. And really that's from just letting the pen set. So cleaned all that out, and took a little while, but got all that kind of cleaned out. So now that ink will be able to be flow freely through that to there's a little breather hole up on top of that. I don't know if you can see that very well. And then you have a slit down to the nib tip that we write with. So, yep. Looks like there's still a little bit of moisture right there on the end of that. There we go. So, yep. So that's pretty much how that pen pretty much works. And the filler that I said was a I don't know if you'll be able to see inside of there. There's yeah. So inside this section of the pen, you push this button and there's this long lever, almost like a spring, and it pushes against that ink sac inside there and collapses it. And then when you release it, that ink sac starts expanding back out and will suck the ink up. And we'll do that here in a bit. So let's put this section back together. Let's finish putting this pen together. All right, put that together. And another thing we want to make sure that we do, and I already have some on it, but you got this medical grade talc, right? I don't know if it needs to be medical grade, but that's what they sent me. So I got some of it right there. Yep. And that's just to keep, man, this black rubber right here, if you don't have something on it, it really gets really sticky. And I would hate to see that stuff sticking to the side. You know what I mean? All right, so I'm going to get the shellac. I'm going to open it up. I'm just going to try and dry this brush off as best I can. Now I'm just going to put just a little dot right there. Just going to take my finger and just kind of flatten that out just a little bit. Now I'm going to look for the writing with my super young eyes. And I'm just going to slide that on. Yep. Sorry, just going to slide that on. There we go. So the top of the nib is in line with the top of the writing. I figure everybody does stuff differently, but if you have a method to your madness, then it makes sense. So the cap twists on perfectly. And I think this has 3 threads in it. So like, it's like, if you hold it right here with the pen lined up right here, you could rotate this around. And I hear it click again. I could rotate this back around and see how it's right there. Now I'll rotate it around again. Click again. Now it's there. That's 2, right? 3. And just back to, you know what I mean? So, kind of funny. So, every time you put the pen cap on, you could be putting it in slightly of a different position. So, I learned that one time when I was trying to line up the where the nib was going to pull out from the same spot every time from where the pen cap, the hook was, or the pen clasp, whatever you call it right now. And I put the nib on, and then I would put the pen in, and I was like, that's not the right spot. So then I'd adjust the nib, and I'd put it back in. And I adjust the nib again, and I put it back in. I'm like, man, I'm losing my mind. No, not losing my mind. You can thread it differently every time. I thought that was pretty funny. So, anyways, all right, let's fill up this pen. So, pretty simple procedure, right? I think the most complicated thing is actually understanding how the pen actually works. So I got this ink. Man, I'm really happy with these inks. These inks have done really well. And this is Birmingham Pen Company, the Birmingham Pen Company. If you're not familiar with these inks and you want a good quality ink, you're gonna pay a good price for really good ink, and you can pay a really good price for an ink that's not so good, in my opinion. So really happy with these inks. I've had about 4 of them so far. This one's a burl wood, and one thing that's kind of fun is you can actually blend your own inks. So that's one thing I did. I took a dark blue, and I wanted it really dark, where like you wonder if that's blue or is it black. And actually a lot of guys thought, hey man, I thought that was black ink. No, it's actually a blue ink. So yeah, I really like it a lot. Maybe I should have showed that on the video, but anyways. So here we go. I'll shake this up. This is called burl wood. It's a nice light brown. And some of the thing about this light types of ink is depending on how you write and lay your ink down, if you have heavy or light strokes in certain places, it'll give a color variation. So we're just going to push this button and we're going to release it. We're going to wait. We want to wait 10 seconds, right? I'm just going to push it again. All right. I just hit it against the side of the deal as I come up. Then I don't know, I've never spilled a bottle of ink, knock on wood, but what could go wrong, huh? No, I always want to close those real quickly before something does happen. Now I just take some toilet paper. I find toilet paper works really well for this stuff, and you can real easily see, you know, where all the ink's at, and you know, it really sucks up really well. We'll clean up that feed. So I believe if you buy a good quality pen, then and you just keep on filling it, I really think you're gonna save some money, you know. And I'm not saying you're gonna buy, you know, like an insanely expensive pen like $2,000 or what. Now this is called posting right here, and posting is you just post the cap, right? It's got a nice snug fit right there, good quality. And the lady who had the pen, she took really good care of it to keep it out of the sunlight. A lot of these types of pens, you'll see them, they'll have 2 colors on them, one from the exposure to sunlight and the underneath side. But this pen is all pretty much the same color all the way around, and you can tell that it was stored properly. Now with this type of pen, I like using it without the cap posted. So let's write a little bit. All right, so you can kind of see the variation of that ink. I like that. Nice ink. Yep. And you can see that a little bit better on that. The second one, you can kind of see there's some dark spots and there's some really light spots. So yeah. So I think this ink is actually a pretty cool ink to actually write with. So you can actually see how fast I'm going there. No one's ever going to write that fast, right? Well, as far as I'm concerned, I'm pretty slow at everything I do. So, yep, it's just a good pen. I like it. It's a number 3 tip on the nib, so it's writing really well. Everything's really good about it. It's got a good feel. One other thing I'll say about these pens, these old vintage pens especially, is paper. We don't view it, but it actually is a little bit abrasive, right? Especially depending on what type of elements are on it, in it, whatever, right? And as we run this nib across there, a lot of people say that it'll actually change and affect the way that the pen writes, and I can attest to that, right? So people get a brand new pen and they'll start writing with it, and it'll break in that the end of that, the tip will actually break in to the way that that person holds their pen, the angle at which they write and how they write, and it will really break into how they write. So a lot of people will actually not let other people use their pens due to that reason, because another person will write so differently. They're nervous that if they write enough to throw that off, they have to re-break in their pen. So some people share their pens, some people don't. I share my pens. If someone needs a pen, I'm more than happy. I'd rather have them break it than not be that kind of person that wants to help other people out. So great pen. Now if I was going to clean this pen, I would do this in pretty much the reverse order. So since it's a button filler, it's a button emptier. So we grab our ink and we can push our button, and all our ink just comes right back out. You can hear that? Yep. That's how much that bladder or that ink sac expands and contracts. So there you go. Now, a lot of these really good inks are color fast, so be careful what you get your ink on and remove it as fast as you can. So a lot of times I get it on my hands when I'm filling it. Sometimes when I'm in a rush or not thinking very, very good or anything like that. So, yep. If you guys need to clean these pens really well and soak it, do a solution of mineral water, vinegar water, white vinegar, and white vinegar will help just dissolve and break that, break all that crud up, all that dried ink and everything like that inside. Now from this point that I got this pen completely emptied of ink, now you need to get the ink out. So I would just grab a glass of water, a clear glass preferably, and I would put that pen inside there, swirl it around, and I would act like I was filling it. You want fresh water going inside and that nasty ink coming back out, and you want to do that until you get your pen clean. Now from there, I try and just, you see how I kept on pressing that deal, I could you want to press that until you get the majority of all the water out. You can flick it a little bit, and then I just kind of store it upwards a lot of times, or even sideways, for like at least half a day, and I try and let the rest of that moisture and everything like that come out from that ink sac or that bladder, and just evaporate off. So then I know I have a really good clean pen, and then I can put it aside and store it. Now you can use these pens for if you're using them like pretty frequently. Now with this pen, it has these two holes inside of it. One hole on this side, one hole on that side. And I think you can see it right there. See that? Yeah. So these holes are for just balancing out the pressure, right? Because if you had a sealed cap and you put that thing on there and you went in an airplane or something, all this different pressures and stuff like that, you need that ink to balance out, or you run into catastrophe, right? Anyways, your ink spilled all over the place, or whatever. So anyways, with a pen like this, you have a lot of air going inside to that nib and that ink sac. So if you're not using it, that ink inside there is going to dry out, right? So you can go a couple days you know, a lot of times without your ink drying out. Sometimes you just got to give a good tap, you know, to kind of get that ink to, you know, kind of start flowing down that nib. And you know, sometimes it's right and it's really dry. Now, if I get to that, then I fill up a glass with like a little bit of water inside of it, and I'll put this pen nib inside there, and I'll just let it sit there, and you'll see all this color of ink shoot out everywhere, and it looks like, man, there's a lot of ink, but it's actually not. It's just ink, just you know, emulsifying in that water. But it'll get up inside there and start trying to wet the that nib right there on the inside where that ink feed groove is. So usually that'll bring a pen back right into writing, right? And after I pull it out of the water, I'd dry it off with some toilet paper, and I'd start writing with it. And usually that'll bring it back perfectly. So if that doesn't, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to soak it in vinegar. I use maybe sometimes a little bit of soap. Most of the time I just use water. I just use water just to clean my pens and store them. And I usually only use one pen at a time. And the reason why I use one pen at a time is because that pen is always going to work. Now, if you had a sealed pen, and you know, that's not a technical term, that's just poor Pete, you know, being, you know, 7/8, you know, brain dead. But if you had a pen that on the cap it sealed really well, there wasn't holes drilled in it or anything like that, and it just sealed really well. So, some of these new modern pens, they have a push cap that pops on there, and those can actually go up to like, you know, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. My wife had one that she's like, oh, I forgot about that pen, and then she went to go write with it, and it just naturally started coming back. It was dry, but it naturally started coming back. So you can get away with it at times, but the most important thing is knowing how your pen works, knowing what your pen needs, and knowing how you want to use it, and then you can build your own regiment or lifestyle around that to make these pens work for you if that's something you want to do. And I use these pens every day for work. So I work in construction. I work as an electrician in construction, and I'm able to use these pens. And you know, a lot of people are like, "Is that a fountain pen?" You know, and you know, they get a kick out of it. They sometimes they like seeing different pens when I decide to bring a different pen in. So yeah. So anyways, I hope you liked that video. I wanted to take a little bit more time and go through a lot of the more basic stuff on pens, just so someone who's not familiar with pens might have an opportunity, you know, presented to them to get a pen, might have the confidence to be able to do that, you know. So hey, if you like this content, like and subscribe. If you want to get notifications when there's a video available, then hit the notification button. And if you'd like to see anything different, then leave a comment. If you have any questions, leave a comment. Feel free to reach out to me. I leave my email below most of my videos. So if you have any questions or comments, get a hold of me. Reach out. And until next time, be safe out there.